Shabbat Shalom. For the last couple weeks, all eyes have been on the Jews of Detroit and of Michigan. I've been interviewed now by journalists from the Detroit Free Press, the USA Today, the Washington Post, the New York Post, Fox News, Times of London, La Croix, which apparently is not just a carbonated beverage, but is also a newspaper in France. But I'll tell you, this week I had my most nervous interview of the entire fortnight. I was borderline scared. Thursday night, 11:45 p.m., which is 6:45 a.m. in Israel, I was interviewed by Kan 11, Israel's public broadcast radio. Now, it's always a little nerve-wracking to be interviewed. It's always a little more nerve-wracking to be interviewed live. But to be interviewed live in Hebrew, that was a little intimidating. And now I'll tell you, my Hebrew's not bad. I can work a restaurant with the best of them. Take me to the shuk, hey, no problem. Even just casual conversation in Hebrew, I'm usually okay. But to be interviewed about politics and to try to convey the emotions of the Jews of Detroit in Hebrew, that was a lot harder. So I do what all students of language do. I created for myself a vocabulary list. And at the very top, the first word that I looked up on Google Translate, because I'm still 21st century, was the word anxiety. Because if you're going to talk about the Jews of Detroit right now in this moment, what's the word you're going to use the most often? Anxiety. The Hebrew word for anxiety that I learned is charada. Charada. Now, that word may sound familiar in your ears because it has the same root. The Hebrew word for anxiety, charada, has the exact same root as Shaarey. Shaarey. Why? Because both one who is charada and one who is charedi is trembling. And the word charada and the word charedi come from the same shorish, the same root that speaks about trembling. Because one who is anxious is trembling. And one who is ultra-Orthodox is trembling. What's the difference between them as I began to think about it? The difference is what is causing you to tremble. Or maybe more to the point, the difference between charada and charedi is the one who is causing you to tremble. And I might suggest in this month of Elul, as we're counting toward Rosh Hashanah, that maybe we Jews of Detroit and we Jews of Michigan should strive for a lot less charada, anxiety, and to be a lot more charedi. No, I'm not suggesting right now that we should all be in black hats and shadels. But what might it mean for us to focus our trembling from the political process and our neighbors to how we're behaving before God? Because right now, all eyes are on the Jews of Michigan. And I hope we live up to what people are seeing and expecting of us. We are in difficult times. Our bipartisan, that's not even the right word, our binary political system is telling us that you have a choice of either being pro-Israel and pro-Jewish life or pro-liberal and pro-democracy. And I would like to say today that the Jews of Michigan reject the binary. We reject the binary. Yes, come November, we're going to have to vote. We'll make a decision this way or that way. Fine. That's the system in which we're operating. But I would like to suggest that right now, we ask the question, how can we be pro-Israel and strive to protect Jewish lives here in Israel and around the world? And how can we also make sure that the values that we are practicing live up to God's expectations of us as Jews now, in these weeks leading to Rosh Hashanah, and in the weeks thereafter as well? We come this week to Parashat Shoftim. It's a Torah portion with which many of us are very familiar because of the the two Hebrew words that really appear as three in our Torah portion this week. God and Moshe Rabbeinu say to the judges of Israel, they're speaking to our ancestors as they're preparing to build a nation that is deserving of the title of Israel. And God and Moses say to our ancestors, they say to the judges, and they say to all of us, Zedek, Zedek, Tirdof. We know these words. We know them. And how do we typically translate Zedek, Zedek, Tirdof? Justice, justice, you shall pursue. And that's wrong. It's not what the words mean. Because Zedek is a very special word. We know from the name of this week's Torah portion, Shoftim, judges, that there's a word for justice, as we might typically define anyone who says, I will not be blinded by corruption, I will not favor the rich or the poor, the mighty or the weak. It's right there built into the word. That's justice. And the Torah doesn't say, justice, justice shall you pursue. We have Parashat Shoftim, and we're speaking to the Shoftim, the judges, but the Hebrew of the Torah doesn't bring that root forward and say, justice, justice shall you pursue. By the way, nor does the Torah say to the judges, Rachamim, Rachamim, Tirdof. The Torah doesn't say to the judges, compassion, compassion, you shall pursue. Because we know that if judges only saw justice in the strictest of ways, then all of us are going to fail. Society can barely handle that level of justice. And we know that if all the judges considered was compassion, was rachamim, the society would crumble. There's no structure to that. There's no fairness. So instead, God and Moshe Rabbeinu say to us, to our judges, and to all of us who are fundamental in building a society, Zedek, 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 Tirdof. And what I've come to learn from my study over the last year or so of this word Zedek is that it's asking us to pursue justice that has been influenced by compassion. Because justice without compassion is zealotry. Justice without compassion is zealotry. And the Torah is asking us to offer compassion that has been informed by justice. Because compassion that has not been informed by justice is selective cruelty. Compassion that has not been informed by justice is selective cruelty. So the Torah is asking the judges and of us to pursue tzedek, this combination of justice and compassion woven into one in a wise and meaningful way. Because only then can society stand. The Torah is asking us to reject the binary and say something in the middle is the right way to go. So here we are now in the midst of Elul. And we've got the extremists on one side telling us one thing about the other side, by the way. And we have extremists on the other side who are only telling us one thing about their other side, by the way. And this month of Elul, I don't want to talk, certainly not from the bima on a Shabbat, about candidates. But I'd like to invite us to consider right now how we are speaking and how we are behaving and the values and the questions that are going to guide us in these next few weeks and beyond, that take us out of the binary, so that we can ask of ourselves and of each other, are we speaking and acting in a way of which God would be proud? Of which God would be proud, because right now, God's watching. And I like to ask of us, are we speaking and are we acting in a way in which we'll be proud of each other? Because God knows we're looking at each other right now and we're talking to each other, wondering what we're going to do in America right now. And I'd like us to ask of ourselves, are we speaking and are we acting in a way that will make our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren proud? And maybe even more than proud, are we acting in a way that will make them safe and free and prosperous? Those are the questions I think we should be asking of ourselves right now. Because while in this fraught political moment, we are filled with charada, with anxiety, I think we have to work extra hard so that in all the right ways, in all the balanced ways, we can be Haredi, those who tremble before God, and not the politicians, and not the political parties, and not all of America. Because, my friends, we're reminded this week, Zedek, Zedek, Tirdof. You may not always achieve Zedek, but boy, we're obligated to pursue it. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. In this moment and in every moment, may God bless us with strength to do always what is good and what is right. And in all ways, may God bless us, America, and Israel with peace. And let us say together, Amen.